Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargava, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In this episode, we talk about Assam cracking down on child marriages and how it is impacting the families in the region. We also give you an update about the earthquakes that hit Turkey and Syria yesterday. But first, we talk about the legacy of the former president of Pakistan, General Pervez Musharraf.
Our nations must not remain trapped by hate and history in a cycle of confrontation and conflict. For this to happen, it is essential to find a just solution of the dispute over Jammu and Kashmir acceptable to Pakistan, India, and above all, to the people of Kashmir.
On Sunday, Pervez Musharraf, who was 79 years old, died in a hospital in Dubai. Musharraf had been suffering from amyloidosis, a rare disease caused by a buildup of abnormal protein in the body. Now in India, people remember him for many reasons. The fact that he had ousted Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif to become a military dictator, that he had chosen to cooperate with the United States to fight terror after the horrific 9/11 attacks, and that during his time, India and Pakistan came very close to solving the Kashmir issue. But the other reason that people remember him is that before he became the president, he had been the architect of the 1999 Kargil War, in which over 500 Indian soldiers were killed.
Mr. Musharraf came to the idea of settling the Kashmir issue with India after failing to grab a slice of territory in Ladakh during 99 summer.
That's C. Raja Mohan, a senior fellow at the Asia Society Policy Institute and a contributing editor for the Indian Express. And he says that this war is how Musharraf first impacted the relations between India and Pakistan.
So he was a sinner before he became a saint. Firstly, he tried to occupy a piece of territory without really informing what he was doing to its civilian superior, that was Nawaz Sharif. So we had a war and the relationship went pretty south very quickly. But a year later, I think when the war finished in July 1999, Mr. Vajpayee invited him to come to India to start a peace process.
This was in July of 2001, when a historic two-day meeting was set up between India and Pakistan in Agra. In fact, the Agra summit is considered one of the most important meetings between the leaders of the two countries.
The legacy of the past years is not a happy one. Our two countries have been through wars. Blood has been spilled. Precious lives have been lost. We have been locked in mutual suspicion and hostility. We have paid a heavy price for it. We owe it to our future generations to do our utmost to open a new chapter of goodwill and cooperation.
The purpose of the Agra summit was to resolve the long-standing issues between the two countries, including the Kashmir dispute. But Mohan says that the meeting could not work out. India was not happy with Musharraf's commitments, and Vajpayee refused to include a reference to Kashmir in their joint declaration.
So he came and that was a disaster too, because his arrogance, hubris, in the sense that he thought he could bully Mr. Vajpayee into a Kashmir settlement. Then we had, a hiatus for a few months. We had then the 9/11 that happened. And then we had a series of terror attacks, including on the Indian Parliament in 2001. Then again, India mobilized its military. It looked like we were going to go into a war. After that, when India took full mobilization, Mr. Musharraf for the first time said Pakistan's territory will not be used to attack India, to allow terrorists to use Pakistani soil. So that was the first time actually in many, many years that a Pakistani leader was willing to say what he did.
The fact that a Pakistani leader was admitting that terrorism against India emanated from Pakistani soil was a big deal. And later, in 2004, both the sides came together to sign a joint statement in Islamabad.
So basically, the 2004 January agreement had three principles. One was there would be no terror. Two, India would engage Pakistan on Kashmir. And three, both sides will embark on a range of confidence-building measures. So therefore, terror came down, talks on Kashmir began, and that was a period when actually a whole lot of engagements between the two countries began. It became easier for the media to travel across. There were attempts at, negotiating nuclear confidence-building measures. There was an attempt at beginning some trade relationship. So I would say it was the period where actually things looked bright. There was a ceasefire in place that was agreed earlier. So I think it was I would say from 2004 to 2007, early 2008, it was really a good moment when it looked like we were close to doing some things.
Now, a few years after that, in 2004, Vajpayee was replaced by Manmohan Singh as India's Prime Minister. And Singh continued this dialogue with Musharraf.
And then Mr. Musharraf arrived in Delhi soon after. And that's when a broad idea of how to negotiate on Kashmir was agreed. And you had Indian diplomat Ambassador Sati Lamba, he's no more. And Musharraf's special envoy, one Mr. Tariq Aziz, began to negotiate a broad framework for settling the Kashmir dispute.
We expressed our commitment to ensure a peaceful settlement of all pending issues, including Jammu and Kashmir, to the satisfaction of both sides.
Mohan says that by 2006, Musharraf and Manmohan Singh were very close to finalizing a 4-point formula for the resolution of the Kashmir issue.
But at that point, Musharraf lost his power and he was ousted by the circumstances inside Pakistan because he confronted the judiciary. He tried to sack them. But I think the pressure on him to quit mounted pretty quickly and he had to step down.
मैं आज ओहदे से मुस्ताफ़ी होने का फैसला करता हूँ. मेरी रेजिग्नेशन आज स्पीकर ऑफ द नेशनल असेंबली के पास पहुँच जाएगी. मुस्तकबिल को कौम और अवाम के हाथों में छोड़ता हूँ. Let them be the judges.
After Musharraf's resignation, Mohan says that terror activities against India started again, and the dialogue between the two countries completely collapsed. Eventually, Musharraf was awarded the death sentence for the coup he had done 20 years back, and so he exiled himself in Dubai and began living there. Now looking back at his legacy, Mohan says that Musharraf was a paradoxical figure.
In fact, it's quite interesting that he died on the so-called Kashmir Solidarity Day in Pakistan. They make a big deal out of it, Pakistan expressing solidarity. But I would say there are three paradoxes. The first one on Kashmir, he went to war on Kashmir. He tried to negotiate peace on Kashmir. But in the end, he really couldn't really complete the process. So I think that's the first paradox. The second paradox is that he had enormous power, especially after 9/11. When the Western countries were serenading him, saying that, look, they needed Pakistan to fight the war on terror in Afghanistan. So Americans were pouring in money. The entire Western world was pouring in money to Musharraf. And he could have really used it to change the course of Pakistan. One, to end terror, to modernize Pakistan, to economic restructuring of Pakistan.
But Mohan says that he did not do that. In fact, when it came to tackling terrorism, experts say that he wasn't entirely cooperating with the US. For example, at a time when the US was looking for Osama bin Laden, the Al-Qaeda leader had actually been hiding in Pakistan itself. But the Pakistan army under Musharraf kept the US guessing.
So he had a huge historic opportunity because everyone in the world wanted Pakistan to succeed. You can count whether India was interested or not. The rest of the world was so eager to support Pakistan. But I think he blew that chance. I think to really transform Pakistan, he had the international community's support. He had the power internally and he couldn't really do that. He really left it in a much worse shape towards the end of it.
So one paradox was his approach towards Kashmir. Second was what he chose to do when he was in power. And the third relates to how his tenure came to an end.
He was a solid dictator who had enjoyed so much power in Pakistan. The whole country was dancing to his tune. But yet, after he stepped down, he was convicted for treason. And it was really because of the army that he was allowed to leave the country. And it was because of the army that his death sentence was commuted. And let's see in the next 2 days whether he'll be brought back, his body will be brought back and given a state funeral. I mean, then that will generate a whole lot of issues in Pakistan itself. Here was a man who's convicted of treason. Does the Pakistan army give him a state burial, or he would simply stay away from his death? So I think it'll tell you something. I mean, I think because he was at a critical phase, really destroyed Pakistan's democracy when it was just taking root. So it remains to be seen how Pakistan will remember him. It's one thing for us to think of Kashmir and the negotiations we did. But for Pakistan, sadly, barring sections of the army, I don't think anybody in the civilians has good things to say about him.
Mohan says that Musharraf had a chance to undo what the former president of Pakistan, General Zia al-Haq, had done, which was to enable jihadi organizations in the country.
The international war on terror and the American support offered him an opportunity to drain the swamps of terrorism and to put Pakistan back on a modernist path, which he didn't do. He destroyed Pakistan's democracy. Okay, it's one thing to say you destroyed democracy, but could you build anything on the economic front? Because, as I said, the Americans were fully with him. He couldn't do that. So I think it's a tragic legacy. I mean, a legacy where a man had so much power to change Pakistan, but just simply he couldn't really measure up to the opportunities that the world presented him. And I think he's left Pakistan in a much worse shape than he found it.
And next we talk about Assam. Over the past few days, the Assam government has been heavily cracking down on child marriages and has so far arrested over 2,000 people across the state. These people have been booked under the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act and the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act. In this segment, we speak to Sukrita Baruah, who reports on Assam for the Indian Express. Sukrita, could you give us some background on this? When did the plans for this crackdown begin exactly?
So the announcement was made by Assam's Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma on January 23rd. This was following a cabinet meeting that was conducted on that very day. So that day he announced that the government is going to embark on a massive drive against child marriage in Assam. And that's when he had said that we are going to book people who married girls below the age of 14 under the POCSO Act, the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, and men who have married girls between 14 to 18 under the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act. And that it's going to be a pretty all-encompassing and pretty ruthless drive. At that time, the Chief Minister also said, and this continues to be the stand of the state, that they will also be especially focusing on religious heads. So he's used the terms mullahs, qazis and pujaris, who solemnize and formalize these marriages, so as enablers. So the husbands, in some cases parents or relatives, and these religious heads.
And what is the reason that the government and the Chief Minister chose to focus on this issue?
So Assam does have very high child marriage rates, and in fact it has the country's highest maternal mortality rate, as well as a very high infant mortality rate. So what he had said is that one of the big reasons for that is child marriage and women becoming mothers at an early age. So he said that in order to safeguard, to bring down these rates and to protect the girls of the state, this is a necessary action that we're going to be undertaking.
And Sukrita, what did we see the police do after Himanta Biswa Sarma gave these directives to the authorities?
So in less than 10 days after this, the Chief Minister announced that the police has started on this and that they have across the state and across districts, a total of 4,004 cases have been registered. And then he made this announcement on February 2nd. And then he said that from the next day, a ruthless crackdown is going to begin. So that was said on February 2nd, and on February 3rd, it began. And by the evening, the Assam's DGP informed us that a total of 4,074 cases have been registered. And on the evening, on the first day itself, 2,044 people were arrested across districts. So, I mean, this is more than 2,000 people arrested within 24 hours, right? It's unprecedented. So this is a massive action that is being carried out across the state. According to the police, the Chief Minister had informed them that, they want to do something about child marriage around 2 months ago. So what the DGP said is that the district level SPs were asked to get in touch with grassroots government functionaries or village heads and so on. So they were kind of roped in, and then they began creating a record of child marriage cases. So this 4,074 number came through that kind of work. And they're saying that they've been collaborating with grassroots people to work on this.
Right. Now more than 2,400 people have been arrested this way. And you mentioned that the police are basically going after religious heads and, of course, the men who have married these girls. Now, since the crackdown, you have spoken to girls and women, whose husbands have been arrested. What kind of a situation do they find themselves in right now?
Right. So I had gone to Morigao district. And, across the state, we're seeing scenes from police stations and, women are showing up at police stations in numbers. They're waiting at police stations. And in some cases, it's getting a little heated because they're upset that their husbands have been arrested. A lot of them are coming out with children who were born out of these marriages. So the women I met, all of them were uneducated. So they had studied till around class 4, class 8, and they were married off, whether by their family. Some of them say that they eloped to get married at a young age. And a lot of them have children already, though they say that, we're 18 now. They obviously had children when they were minors. And, because of these circumstances, these women say that they're completely dependent on their husbands they look after their children alone and they're not financially independent at all. So this has created some amount of, quite a bit of alarm amongst the women left behind. They're scared about what this will mean for how will they support their families. So this is, I guess the other side. It's a social evil, but, this is the other side of this action.
And Sukrita, is the state concerned about the impact that these arrests might have on these families?
Right. So the chief minister has said so. The budget session is scheduled for next month. In March, we'll have the next budget session here in Assam. So the chief minister has, the Assam government has a scheme called the Orunodoi scheme. So that offers financial assistance to vulnerable women like widows. So he said that we will try to institutionalize some kind of a support system, maybe enrolling these women under the Orunodoi scheme or other welfare schemes. And, it'll work on institutionalizing some kind of rehabilitation. So that, we have to wait and see what exactly is going to happen.
And have we seen any particular reactions from the opposition parties in the state regarding this?
So on day one of the crackdown, things were pretty muted. As far as I know, just one MP, this is the Congress MP from Borpeta, he had questioned the retrospective action. So basically the chief minister had said is that we are going to go after all people who in the past 7 years have participated in child marriage. So the criticism that he had leveled is that this retrospective action is not correct because now, we have women who are dependent or, the children have been born of these marriages. So there was a critique of that. So that was about the only criticism that came to surface on the first day. But on day 2, a lot more political voices started speaking out. So we saw MPs from the Congress, we saw the spokesperson from AIUDF, and the Assam president of the Trinamool Congress, all of them voiced very strong criticism of this. The TMC Assam president Ripun Bora, he accused the government of setting fire to thousands of families who, though the girls might have been children when they got married, but now he said that they are running happy households now. So a lot of the political criticism is coming up. Everybody's saying is that we all stand against child marriage and we need to act on it. But this retrospective action of booking and arresting men who were married in the past, it amounts to harassing the families and that, it should be more forward looking. So that's the political criticism that has been building up from day 2 of the crackdown.
And in the end, we give you an update on the crisis in Syria and Turkey. Early Monday morning, while most people were asleep, a major earthquake of 7.8 magnitude hit Turkey and Syria. The earthquake reportedly originated near south-central Turkey and was the deadliest to hit the country in more than 20 years. Now, as the search and rescue operations were going on, 2 more earthquakes hit the region. The second one approximately 40 minutes after the first one, and the third a few hours after that. They were both measured at 7.5 and 6 respectively on the Richter scale. At the time of this recording, over 2,400 people have been killed because of these earthquakes.
First responders rushing to the scene, trying to pull people out, the chaotic situation where people are screaming for their family members that they can't locate, all while first responders are telling people to remain silent so that they can listen to the cries for help of people that are trapped beneath the rubble as they work to try and pull them out and rush them to safety. We know
now, the
also,
epicenter of the first earthquake was about 90 kilometers from the Syrian border, which happens to be the region which houses millions of refugees from the Syrian civil war. Meanwhile, some reports suggest that the earthquake was felt as far away as Cairo. Visuals from the affected areas show heaps of rubble and debris with kilometers of stretches that have almost been flattened. In the light of this disaster, the Indian government has decided to immediately dispatch search and rescue teams, medical teams, and relief materials to Turkey. Yesterday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, during an event, said that India is ready to provide all help possible to the country.
भारत के 140 करोड़ लोगों की संवेदनाएं सभी भूकंप पीड़ितों के साथ है। भारत भूकंप पीड़ितों की हर संभव मदद के लिए तत्पर है। साथियों,
Additionally, the World Health Organization, Poland, Taiwan, Spain, Greece, and the European Commission have also offered to send rescue teams and other support required to the disaster-hit regions. The first big earthquake yesterday is being compared to the 7.8 magnitude earthquake that killed about 30,000 people in Turkey back in 1939. It is important to note that the country has a history of powerful earthquakes as it sits on top of major fault lines. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava, and was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.